these capacitive touchpads, why don't you think people use them?
Dude, I literally tried that thing like 6 years ago. They're pretty garbage. They suck.
To be honest, it's not really that bad, I think.
But for me, I just find it really hard right now. This could be an additional learning curve though.
I will say it's going to take a long ass time to get used to this thing though. Because there is no travel distance, your key presses are much more immediate.
I swear by this product. So why do so many Osu professionals tell you that this is anywhere from trash to just okay? When I first came to Japan, I had to find a way that I could continue to play Osu without annoying my neighbors. The walls are just too thin. And I hated this thing at first. There just isn't nearly the same feel to it. The responsive feedback that you get from a keyboard is a feeling that I've gotten used to over many years, and switching to essentially tapping on a piece of flat surface is really different. At first, I was hitting everything way too early. And when it came to long streams and consistency, I just was not good at all. So much in fact that I actually stopped playing for quite a while. But out of pure boredom, I decided to continue playing. And one day I noticed that I was able to burst 250 BPM. Wait a minute, 250? My previous best was 210. This is crazy improvement. And I know that's a low number. I'm not good at speed, but I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that this thing shocked me. And of course, out of pure curiosity, I switched to my keyboard to see if I'd be able to do the same thing. Not even close. The main problem was stamina. I just got tired way too quickly.
That is so loud.
And that's the other thing too. It's completely silent. Like, you can tap on this as much as you want and it doesn't make a single sound. If you're living with somebody else or you don't want to annoy your neighbors, you can't beat it. What's more is now that I've gotten used to this little thing, my stamina, accuracy, and consistency is way better than it used to be. And all of this accumulated to me finally being able to break the 300 pp barrier. I know, huge goals, but I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say that this product is objectively superior to other products in the same category, including Rapid Trigger. And I really don't believe you need Rapid Trigger, a touchpad, or a tablet to play Osu very well. But that being said, I do want to explain to you why I think this is better than Rapid Trigger, the king of Osu right now. First point, a touchpad requires 0 grams of force. An instant trigger upon touching means 0 travel distance. For rhythm games, this is like really important because the time that you touch the surface is basically the input to the PC. Therefore, you don't have any arbitrary trigger level that is the input. You can imagine how that would be very easy to understand where the actual surface that you're touching is, as opposed to some kind of point that's undefined within the key. Okay, you might ask, why wouldn't you just make an insanely low actuation distance on your Rapid Trigger enabled keyboard? Well, to that I would ask, have you even tried that? If you set Rapid Trigger to 0.1 actuation, what you get is accidental misinputs without even touching the keyboard. It's doing it again. It's doing it again! Help! Why? You could probably shake your desk and stream 200 BPM. I will give it to Rapid Trigger. Here's where it kind of ruins it a little bit. Theoretically, Rapid Trigger keyboards can start with a high actuation, and then when you let go, it's basically ready for another actuation, meaning that you have negative height actuation points. This could theoretically mean that you could be faster, as opposed to the touchpad where you have to put your finger back down to the device in order to hit that actuation.
But wouldn't you say that this is still better? I mean, there's no weight at all required to press down on this. It's literally always going to consistently be this spot, which is much better for rhythm sense. Lift off and slider brake on a Rapid Trigger keypad, that is literally not even possible here. So, best of both worlds and cheaper.
Non-speed, I actually think it's terrible for non-speed because sometimes you might accidentally tap.
But that being said, it is hard for me to make that assessment on my own.
Yeah, I literally still have it. See this thing? It's the Pro
Yeah.
X Touch. Like key travel distance, most people tend to write it off, but I think people severely underestimate, 0 millimeter travel distance. Oh, that must be crazy for stamina, right? The springs help you lift your finger. It's not just the action of pressing down, but it's also the force needed to lift your finger back up. When you're using a keyboard, there are springs that help you do that. There is technically travel distance difference between like the bone in your finger versus the actual touchpad, which there's a bit of travel distance, which is the fleshy skin. You could be like trying to like press down, but it's not actually pressing because of that like sponginess in your skin.
For me, I find my stamina is like through the roof compared to like when I'm using a keyboard.
If this is working for you and you can perform at your absolute best on this device, go for it. I think the problem right now in the OSU community is that everyone flocks to, this is the best input device for OSU. So you need to get a tablet, you need to get a rapid trigger keyboard. It's ridiculous. If it works for you, you should stick with it.
I think I mentioned this to you at an OSU dinner one time in Tokyo. When it comes to peripherals, I feel there is more utility in something like this, where the utility may be, rather than buying skill, you're buying a more silent way of playing. Living in a Japanese apartment, having this actually provides genuine utility in that I can play late at night or trying to be quiet, as opposed to, you know, a keyboard where you buy that keyboard and yes, maybe you get better, maybe you don't, but it definitely doesn't provide any utility apart from potentially maybe being able to play better on that specific hardware. Whereas this provides a separate utility that's in a different category, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I think that's definitely like an advantage of it. However, I would say that there are ways that you can make your keyboard quieter without needing to like do any crazy modifications. Like literally just slapping a towel underneath it significantly reduces the amount of sound it makes.
And after all that, I still don't know. So I got a rapid trigger keyboard. This was overkill. By the way, I definitely do think this is the best rapid trigger keyboard on the market right now. Here's a list of features, but review coming soon, so hit subscribe. After using rapid trigger for a week on my keyboard live on my Twitch stream, I also compared it to this touchpad. Rapid trigger is kind of tough to get used to because you have to like drop the idea of like an actuation point that's fixed. Basically figure out how to make the top of your stroke the actuation. Maybe it's just a skill issue. My strength is just not enough to keep going.
It's actually like super well known for OSU players who have gotten into the custom mechanical keyboard space. The custom plate that you use, the thing that the switches actually mount into before they go into the PCB, if you use a harder material like brass, it makes the feedback that your fingers feel much more harsher. And that's actually terrible for OSU. So it's actually preferred for you to use a softer plate like polycarbonate. And I feel like for something like this, it is the worst of everything.
Let's test the theory that I'm having though. I want to try, so I'm going to plug this thing in and see. Although I will say, the keyboard definitely feels a lot nicer to tap on, like just the tactility, like instant accuracy buff, like by a significant margin. Obviously I am used to this device. Like to think that there's good reason for this to be easier to be accurate on once you're used to it. This is tech map, so I want to see this and then I want to switch immediately to the keypad again. I get so scared on every slider. No, it's such an easy pattern too. We have got an A rank in the tech map sense. I don't think I had any slider breaks there, so that was, maybe I'm improving. Maybe the skill diff is decreasing. I have much better accuracy on sliders. This score has higher accuracy, but my combo sucks, so that's why it's a lower score. I do think there's not as much of a difference. I felt that the sliders I was less accurate on with the rapid trigger keyboard itself. But it's not as big of a difference as I expected, so my brain has programmed me to now, after using the keyboard for a while, understand that I can actuate once my key press is finished, and I can actuate at this point, like the top of my finger moving down. So that means that when I switch back to this, I have to reprogram my brain to understand that I actually have to push my finger all the way down in order to actuate. So I'm hitting things a little bit late when I first start jumping back onto this thing. Transitioning to rapid trigger to try that for a little while, I found that I was able to easily adapt to the rapid trigger setting, as opposed to when we did the video that you did. You had trouble like trying to feel the effect of rapid trigger so much, whereas like I adapted to it straight away because the way that I tap is very light, creating the top of my stroke to be the downstroke input. When I switched back from rapid trigger to this, I found that I was tapping really late because I I got used to the downstroke being the top of my stroke, if that makes sense. Like, I wonder if it's a preference and playstyle, or if there's literally just an objectively better, especially when it comes to rapid trigger versus this, because I personally feel that like I have not matched my results on anything even close. Like I can like stream 220 on this, whereas I can't even stream 190 sometimes on a keyboard, or 200 is probably my max. So I find that conflicting. You know, so why is it that people give such below average reviews to products like this in the OSU space? Well, I'd actually be willing to bet that it's because they didn't stick it out for long enough. I think it's really hard to switch to such a different feeling playstyle. I think with the introduction of Hall effect switches, it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where you can get many inputs with less strain on your fingers in less time, without having to sacrifice using a completely different device and a completely different feeling in order to get that. Because we get to see a top player who has the skill to show us what these things are really capable of. So as a summary, I would have to say, to be honest, I don't think that any product will ever give you skill. However, some definitely help you improve faster. When it comes to those kinds of products, you gotta ask yourself the question, is it worth spending money on trying to improve that skill ceiling when you don't actually have the skill to improve that much more anyway? So ultimately, I think the more valid question is, why do you want a keypad? Because if the reason is simply to improve in a single free-to-play video game, I don't think it's a very good reason. Hey, that's just me personally. I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it. But I will say that the absolute utility that this has provided me from being able to play completely silently without annoying anybody is a huge bonus. But hey, if you enjoyed this video and also want to pick up one of these, I'll leave a link in the description to the Etsy store that I bought it off. It's actually really quite impressive. I think it's a 3D printed here. I have been using it for a very long time. I very much enjoy it.
If you made this far in the video, you liked it, so you better smash the like button, all right? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow Peter on... You have a Twitch, right?
Yeah.
Twitch.tv/...
Professor Impressive.
This thing here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, guys.